It's now again. Welcome back to It's Now Again, the podcast where we explore mindfulness practices from a secular, evidence-based perspective. I'm your host, Jeremy West, and today we're tackling a topic that I'm sure many of us can relate to, dealing with negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are a natural part of the human experience. They can arise from stress, anxiety, past experiences, or simply the daily challenges that we all face. But while these thoughts are normal, they can become overwhelming if we get too caught up in them. That's where mindfulness comes in. Today, we're going to explore the concept of cognitive defusion, which is a powerful mindfulness strategy that helps us create a space between ourselves and our thoughts. Instead of getting stuck in negative thinking patterns, cognitive defusion allows us to observe our thoughts with a sense of detachment, reducing their emotional impact and giving us more control over how we respond. So, what exactly is a cognitive defusion? In simple terms, it's the process of separating ourselves from our thoughts. Often we tend to fuse with our thoughts, believing them to be true and letting them dictate our emotions and actions. Cognitive defusion teaches us that our thoughts are just thoughts. They're not necessarily facts, and they don't define who we are. Imagine you're sitting by a river, and each thought that arises is a leaf floating on the water. Instead of grabbing onto the leaves and getting pulled downstream, you simply watch them pass by. This is cognitive defusion in action. It's about observing your thoughts without getting swept away by them. Let's look at a few practical techniques for practicing cognitive defusion. Number 1, label your thoughts. When a negative thought arises, simply label it as a thought. For example, instead of saying, I'm a failure, say, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. This simple shift helps you see the thought for what it is, a mental event, not a truth. Another way is to use imagery. Visualize your thoughts as something separate from you. You might imagine them as leaves on a stream, or clouds in the sky, or words written on a chalkboard. The goal is to see the thoughts as something outside of you, something that you can observe without getting entangled in it. Another good one is sing your thoughts. This technique might sound a bit silly, but it's surprisingly effective. When a negative thought arises, try singing it to the tune of a familiar song like Happy Birthday. This helps to diffuse the emotional charge of the thought, and it gives you some distance from it. And another strategy is to thank your mind. When a negative thought arises, you can simply thank your mind for the thought. This might be counterintuitive, but it's a way of acknowledging the thought without letting it take control. Remembering that our minds evolved this way in order to keep us alive. And so your mind isn't trying to make you anxious. It's just trying to keep you alive. By thanking your mind, you're reminding yourself that you're in charge, not your thoughts. As you practice these techniques, remember that the goal isn't to eliminate negative thoughts altogether. That's impossible. Instead, the goal is to change your relationship with your thoughts. By practicing cognitive defusion, you'll find that negative thoughts have less power over you, and you'll be better able to respond to life's challenges with clarity and calm. It's also important to be patient with yourself. Cognitive defusion, like any mindfulness practice, takes time and consistency. There will be days when it feels easy and natural, and there will be days when it feels like a struggle. That's okay. The key is to keep practicing, knowing that each moment of mindfulness brings you closer to a more peaceful and more centered state of mind. If you're interested in exploring cognitive defusion further, or if you'd like to work with me one-on-one to develop a mindfulness practice that works for you, you can find more resources and information about my mindfulness coaching services at jeremywest.net. I've also started a Pay What You Want Patreon, where you can access guided meditations, including one specifically designed to help you practice cognitive defusion. That's also found at jeremywest.net. Thank you for joining me today on It's Now Again. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, share it with others who might benefit, and leave a review. Remember, the present moment is always here, waiting for you to return to it. Until next time, I'm Jeremy West, reminding you that your thoughts don't control you. You have the power to observe them, let them go, and choose how to respond. Because it's now again.